to this South African lady, Ghana is not meant for the whites. According to her, going to Ghana has changed her perspective as a black person.
Is probably going to be one of the most healing things you can do for your psyche and your spirit. And I know African Americans have been saying this, and I didn't expect to feel that way as a person who's lived on the continent for every day of my life except for the last 4 years. But it really does feel so spiritually healing, and that's because the society is so Afrocentric. It feels like things were built with an African in mind, right? I just felt so valid for the first time. In my own country, there's so many spaces where I feel apologetic. Like I feel like I shouldn't be there. And if I'm in the space, like, be grateful, right? And you can't act like this if you want to be here, because so much of our society is built with the Western gaze in mind and is built to be Western centric. And so being in a place where you are valid, where you are beautiful, where you are the person that you are the target market, you're not the accidental target market, you are the person that they are pitching these products to, walking in the shop and finding not just dark and lovely and whatever, finding beautiful products, looking at the fashion that is luxurious and African, like that will shake you to your core if you've never experienced that before. Like,
this is why traveling to an African country that's outside of where you're from is really important. The more we connect, the more we travel and see what others are doing, what their culture is, their history is, it's definitely eye-opening. And unfortunately, we're not able to. One, our governments are restricting us from seeing one another, and two, there's a perception of like they don't like us, they hate us, we don't like each other, like this fake narrative that some other people concocted and gave us, and we buy it. So for this South African sister, going to Ghana meant spiritual healing. She felt healed because, in her own words, everything there was Afrocentric. It was made for Africans, by Africans. It was seen through our lens. And according to her, at least, living in South Africa, she felt like it was never Black people, Black South Africans are not the target whenever they're trying to sell something or whenever they're trying to tell a story. It's not for them. According to her, it's for the white gaze, is what the word she used. So, for her, going to Ghana opened her eyes to what it feels like to live in a country where majority of the people are Black and they're African. And if anything, since everyone is Black, now the separation becomes tribe, and you're from this region and I'm from...
When it comes to tourism in Africa, when you want that African country that will give you the original African vibe, Ghana is always the place. For this South African lady, going to Ghana was different. According to her, for the first time in her life, she can be in an African country and not feel stigmatized. Now, you all know that when it comes to the descendants of Black people, many of them have been traced down to Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Ghana is that place where even the whites go to and want to be Blacks. Yes, Ghana is that place that when white foreigners, white Americans, white Afro-Caribbeans go to, they immediately enjoy being Black. According to her, Ghana is the only place in Africa where she can go to as a Black person and not feel stigmatized. I understand her opinion and her feelings as a South African, because you all know what has been going on in South Africa for a while, the white supremacy and the dark supremacy. In fact, as we speak in South Africa, the whites even have higher privilege compared to the Black people. This is happening in Africa, not to the diaspora. So many South Africans have been crying about this, saying that why should they in their own country, why should they in their own land be treated as second-class citizens?
One of the things that have really shocked me about Ghanaians is how polite and how kind and respectful they are. To an extent, I was even telling someone yesterday that I feel like I'm rude. It's so crazy that I don't know how to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Ghana is very safe. that I can just walk with my phone not carrying. People are not telling me to take care of my belongings. You are holding these phones here everywhere, like, especially as a vlogger, compared to how I do it in my country. I have to like hold my phone like my life depends on it. People here are more accommodative and friendly to the camera. Like, I feel like if you are a solo traveler and you're starting to travel in a solo country, the first one, even as a female, as a black person, I would recommend Ghana. Because when you're traveling, there's so many things you need to have in your head. Like, you need to figure out your location. Is the internet working? Like, there's so many things. So if you can reduce the amount of, I've been walking out in the streets at night and I feel safe.
So for this South African lady to go to Ghana and have this feeling, I totally understand. Despite the fact that so many diasporans are coming into Ghana, Ghana has still been able to gatekeep their traditions, still been able to gatekeep their values as Black people. So many people usually ask me and say the recent 300 diasporans that we are giving Ghanaian citizenship, that they hope with time that Ghana will not start facing the same things South Africans are facing. You all know there was a time when the whites didn't have the amount of power they have in South Africa compared to, the way they have it now. They are saying that hopefully in the next few years, Ghana will not become like South Africa, where the whites will now start dragging their rights with them. And I'm like, Ghana is not that place. Why? Because these people are gatekeepers. Yes, Ghanaians are gatekeepers. I've always said here, Ghana is the only African country where most of their news stations speak their local dialect, Twi, officially. When you go to many of the Ghanaian parliament, they speak the local dialect there. I'm not saying they do not speak English. They speak English, but it is not as, popular as other African countries. When you go to most markets in Ghana, go to most schools in Ghana, you hear them communicate with their local dialects. That is to tell you how much these people have gatekeep their culture. Ghanaians know when to call it a halt and they know when to move forward. They proved this in the just concluded elections in 2024. So I believe that even if a white supremacy issue would tend to rise in Ghana in the next few years, Ghanaians will be able to curtail it. This South African lady has, shared her shocking experience. According to her, she never believed that she can enjoy being a Black person in Africa. Like I always say, if we go outside Africa and we complain that the whiter, counterparts are treating us a certain way, why should we come back to our own country? Why should we come back to our own place and treat our fellow Black person in a bad way? For example, there's this story that had been trending of some Ghanaian, people, Ghanaian residents in the US that went to report their fellow Ghanaians to the US government saying they do not have papers. I will put in a clip of that video here. Let's watch it.
And a Nigerian lady came and said, I hear you are Archbishop Duncan Williams from Ghana. I said, yes. He said, pray for your people. I said, why? He said, 2 Ghanaian ladies fought here. And one of them went and reported to the authorities that all the Ghanaians who work there don't have papers. So the authorities came and ransacked everybody, husbands and wives. They left their home with their children, dropped them at school, went to work and didn't come back home.
How can you do this to your fellow Black person? If you complain the whites treat you a certain way, you a Black person, why do it to your fellow Black person? So this is what we're talking about. So I'm glad that when it comes to tourism in Ghana, Ghana has a way of keeping that originality, that, that authenticness that every other person who wants to, associate themselves with Black people find in Ghana. So for this South African lady, I totally understand. With the things happening in South Africa, white supremacy, the Black part of South Africa being suppressed by the whiter part, I understand your feelings and your sentiments going to Ghana and being treated the way you were treated. Yes, once more, like I always say here, when it comes to tourism, when it comes to putting Africa on the global map, Ghana is always the place. Lovelies, feel free to drop your own opinions in the comment section. I'm Delicious Army. Here I talk Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, and all the good stuff relating to them. I'll definitely see you in my next one, guys. Bye-bye.